2 races in a row, I've got my race winner prediction right. Too bad I don't bet on it, but I have won. At what cost? We're going to talk about the McLaren goof up in a while, but what a Hungarian Grand Prix. There was so much action on track, and there was even more action on all of the team radios. DTS is gonna milk every little thing out of this episode because they had McLarens fighting on the radio, Max Verstappen complaining on the radio, Verstappen crashing into Hamilton. I mean, that is gonna get so many views. It's just crazy. So let's talk about the restart. Once again, Norris bottled it starting from P1. He definitely needs to work on his race starts more because the first half is good. He was covering off Piastri, everything was going well, but then Oscar had the inside line. So he kind of pushed Norris a little bit wide, and then because of that, Verstappen had to go off track and he gained an advantage, took a position off track ahead of Norris, and in typical fashion, he decided that that was the right thing to do and he doesn't have to give the position back. And there was back and forth on the radio, and then eventually Red Bull was like, bro, this position is wrong, just give it back. And then Max was like, okay then, if we can push people off track, I'm gonna do that as well, tell the FIA. As if he has not done that before. But that's not the point that we're talking about. So Piastri got a very good start. He took the lead of the race. Lewis also got a pretty good start. At one point, he was almost gonna jump Verstappen, but all of that thing happened, and then they settled off with Piastri in the lead, then Norris, then Verstappen, then Hamilton, followed by the Ferraris. Now this track was very heavy on the tire. The tires were wearing out very quickly, and that's why the undercut was powerful. What is undercut? You might have heard about that on the commentary. So basically, let's say two drivers are fighting for a position. The driver that is behind, the team pits that driver. The driver goes into the pit stop, gets on fresher tires, and by the time the car ahead of him pits, he has enough pace advantage with the new tires that he's able to, make up for that pit stop, and he comes up ahead of him. That's what Mercedes did with Lewis Hamilton. He was the first one from the top cars to pit from the medium tires to the hard tires, and you can see that by the time later on Red Bull reacts to that by pitting Verstappen. So by the time Verstappen pits, Hamilton is already ahead of him, whereas on track, Hamilton was behind Verstappen before he pitted. So that's called pulling an undercut. So that was the first strategy fumble from Red Bull. They let Mercedes undercut them, and because of that, Verstappen then had to chase Hamilton. Thankfully, Verstappen had a lot more pace in his Red Bull on those fresher tires that he was able to come close to Lewis Hamilton. But then Hungary is not a track that is known for overtaking. Some people also call it Monaco without walls. So here you could see Lewis pulled out a crazy defense move, and Max was just not able to overtake him. And the more you're fighting with a driver ahead of you, the more you're closer to them, the more your tires also get used up in the dirty air. And you could see that in this fight later on, Leclerc also ended up joining this battle because the Ferraris had a very good pace on the hard tires. Meanwhile, in the front, after Hamilton had pitted, McLaren pitted Norris first and then Piastri, because Norris and Piastri had like a 3.5 second or even bigger gap. So Norris pitted, he was in P2, Piastri pitted, he was in P1, so that was not a problem. But while this Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc battle was going on, Piastri had a moment on the track, so that 3-second gap that Norris had to Piastri came down to 1.2, 1.5, 1.6 second, and this is where the confusion started. Because now the second round of pit stops were coming in, and once again Mercedes pulled the undercut on Red Bull and Ferrari. They pitted Lewis Hamilton first, once again put him out on a fresh set of hard tires, and Ferrari was quick enough to react to it. So Leclerc and Hamilton, both of them pulled into the pit lane at the same time. Now this was a bit of a fumble from Ferrari as well, because Leclerc was one of the fastest guys on the hard tires. The pace was really good of the Ferrari on the hard tire. They could have extended the stint like Max did. You will see that Max pitted much later for another set of medium tires. Ferrari did not have hard tires. They had another set of medium only, so they should have extended the stint, which they didn't do. So even though Leclerc was on mediums and Hamilton was on hards, technically mediums are the faster tire, they were constantly overheating for Leclerc in Lewis's dirty air, and he had to also stretch the medium tires for 30 laps, so he couldn't push that much, and that was kind of where his race was done. And because the undercut is so powerful on this circuit, McLaren was scared that Hamilton might challenge Norris for P2 by the end of the race, so that's why they ended up pitting Norris ahead of Piastri, and that is where the whole saga started. This was like the biggest strategy fumble from McLaren because they pitted Norris first and then Piastri on the next lap. So of course Norris undercutted Piastri, and Piastri had a 2-second lead on Norris. By the time he came out of the pits, Norris had a 2.5-3-second lead on Piastri, and then started that constant messaging on the radio between Norris and his race engineer, where his engineer is like, you need to give the position back. Initially, Norris didn't respond. He was like, he's not hearing this thing. And then later on, he was like, then you should have pitted Oscar first, which is completely right. The thing is that this is completely on McLaren, and they put their drivers in this embarrassing situation where either ways Lando is not going to end up looking nice. See, the thing is, he's currently the closest championship contender to Max Verstappen in the battle right now, so he is not wrong to think about himself. Being in P1 would give him a 7-point advantage, and imagine if he's going to lose the championship by less than 7 points at the end of this season, this decision is going to really sting. And this is completely on McLaren because they overestimated the threat they had on Lewis. They had enough gap to, pit Piastri first and then Norris. The normal order in the race would have restored. They wouldn't have had to go with so much of conversation on radio. There was so much emo blackmail happening. Lando, please think about our morning meetings. You will need Piastri, this, that. It was completely unwarranted. And as a team, it is their duty to figure these things out and not put their drivers in this position when they're driving at 300 kilometers an hour. The simple solution was pit Piastri, then pit Norris. Or if they were pitting Norris, they should have informed him beforehand that this is the situation, we are going to pit you first. And by the time you come out of the pits, you have to give the position back to Oscar. They didn't do that. And even though either way they were going to get a McLaren 1-2, they completely ruined that feel of Oscar's first win. And in the meantime, while all of this was going on, Verstappen pitted for the medium tires, and once again, he ended up behind Hamilton and Leclerc. So that's why he was even more pissed off on the radio that Red Bull let Mercedes undercut them first time, then they let Ferrari and Mercedes undercut them for the second time. So he was completely annoyed. The car was not behaving the way he wanted to. By the way, Red Bull had a major upgrade package for this race. Somehow it did not end up giving the gains that they wanted, and Verstappen was not happy with the car. Regardless, he was able to overtake Charles Leclerc, and then once again he was stuck behind Hamilton. That was like crazy defense that Lewis pulled in. It reminded me of 2021 when Alonso was defending against Hamilton for that Ocon win. It was very similar to that. And it was really cool to watch. That defense was amazing from Lewis. But then eventually Max kind of lost his patience, locked up, and then hit Hamilton. His car was airborne. And somehow both of them ended up making it through without any damage. And Max ended up finishing the race in P5. So yeah, he kind of lost one position, and he could have eventually, if he was a little bit more patient, he would have gone ahead of Hamilton. But then these things happen. Lewis is okay with it. He's not complaining. Max is fine. There was no penalty for him. That is what the stewards decided. But yeah, it is kind of a day to forget for Max, because even Red Bull was not agreeing to him on the radio. GP called his constant complaining childish, and there was just way too much back and forth. And clearly Max didn't have the best day. But yeah, good podium from Hamilton, good drive. If we talk about their teammates, Perez and Russell, Perez actually had a decent race. Red Bull did get the strategies right with him, and he seemed kind of comfortable in the car. He finished within the points even though he started way back. So did Russell. So decent recovery drive from both of them. So there's this video where Verstappen is telling Ricciardo before the race that they've made the car a bit too understeery. There is too much downforce on the back, and that is actually how Perez likes the car. That is what he's comfortable with, and I guess that's why we saw him do really well in this race. Like, Perez and Max have completely opposite driving styles. Although it's just that when they make the car that is understeery, it is not the fastest car on the grid. Regardless of that, it was a good drive from him, considering that his seat is in a bit of a trouble. I mean, if he's gonna have a difficult weekend in the next Grand Prix, I think after the summer break, we might not see him in the Red Bull. There's not much to talk about Ferrari. They are either the third or the fourth fastest car. Their latest update has introduced a lot of problems that they need to resolve, and they've accepted their fate. They are like, the solution is not going to come very soon, so they have to wait and watch. And McLaren actually has jumped Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. They are P2, and if they end up having the fastest car for the rest of the season, I do think that after so many years, McLaren might finally clinch that Constructors title. I still have hope for the Drivers' Championship. That gap is a bit too much too close for Norris, but we don't know. At the start of the season, we never really thought that Red Bull would struggle so much and McLaren would make such great strides with their car. But I want to talk about the commentary a bit here. If you watch the international feed on F1 TV, or if you watch it on Fan Code or on Sky Sports, basically, you get David Croft and Martin Brundle. What was wrong with Crofty? He has complained, I think, thrice or 4 times he's complained about how Max is agitated because he was up late last night for a sim racing event, and because of that he's not had his sleep, and then he's angry, he's complaining about things on the radio. He tried to joke about it once, it was okay. Then he said it twice, then he said it once again every time Max was on the radio, and that was just the amount of great commentary that Crofty does. This was just Like right there. I mean, there was no need for this. Another Red Bull family driver was also annoyed with their team for the strategy, and that was Daniel Ricciardo, because they completely ruined his race. First of all, he started off on the medium tires, and then somehow they ended up pitting him so early because they wanted to cover Magnussen, I think, or one of the Haas that was on the soft tires. But they were on the soft tires, Ricardo was on the medium tires, and they somehow still ended up pitting him too early, and then they completely destroyed his race. Like, I mean, even Ricardo was like, in the 200 plus race starts I have had, this was one of the most confusing strategy that the team has pulled, and he was really annoyed with the team. They completely ruined his race. Where at the same time, with Yuki, they pulled a really nice one-stop strategy. Yuki made it stick as well, and he ended up being in the points. And behind Yuki were Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso. So basically what happened was, Alonso was trying to overtake Yuki. He couldn't. Lance was behind Alonso. So Aston Martin was like, let's swap the position and see if Lance can overtake Yuki. So they did that. And at the end of the race, he couldn't end up doing it. So Lance's race engineer on the radio was like, let's swap the position. Let's give Fernando his position back, because it was for 1 point. Stroll doesn't respond, doesn't give the position back, and ends up being P10 for a position that he was gifted from Fernando. I know Fernando is not going to care about one championship point, but that was like unsportsmanlike. But what are you going to do? Fire Stroll? I don't think so. Apart from Red Bull, they were the second team who had a major upgrade package at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Looked decent. They ended up with both of the cars in Q3, so they were back to where they started, which was around the 5th fastest car. And then there is not much to talk about Williams, Haas, Kick Sauber or something like that. Everyone was trying to do something weird with the strategy, but because this track is so hard to overtake, they never really could do much. In fact, Alpine once again had to retire Gasly's car for some reason. There were some hydraulic problems, 2 DNFs in the last 2 races. Kind of sucks. That was your Hungarian Grand Prix. It was an amazing race. I mean, the way the 2024 season has panned out, there is drama off track, there is drama on track, there is drama on driver radios, there is drama within teams. It is a complete blockbuster season, and I am so excited to watch the next season of Drive to Survive. Not for the fake narratives that they make, but the behind the scenes content that they put out. That is something that I really like watching. I hope that they have more of this and less of that fake commentary and stuff like that. But anyways, what was your opinion on the Hungarian Grand Prix and the McLaren goof up? Let me know in the comments. And what are your predictions for the Belgian Grand Prix? I think it's either going to be a Max win or a Norris win. I do feel that Red Bull is going to bounce back on that track. It's like a very typical high-speed race track. Max loves to drive there, and he's going to be very hard to beat is what I feel, but let's see what happens. In the meantime, you guys should subscribe to my channel for more race reviews, and let me know what other kind of videos would you like to watch here. Gameplays, more videos about F1, let me know. And for more news and updates, you should follow me on Instagram at your F1 guy. Thank you for watching this race review. I'm going to catch up after the Belgian Grand Prix.